Hey YouTube, this is Grant. I got a little bit of a longer video for you today, but I'll try to wrap it up quick. But I do want to have a little bit of a discussion and hear what anybody who watches this, even if it's later on, what they think about the topic. So the last video I made was about getting counterfeit cards from eBay. I also mentioned in the last video I'm not buying cards from eBay anymore, and the only reason I have this that came in is because I bought them at the same time. And then after I received the first one, the first couple that were counterfeit, I'm like, God, never again. Unfortunately, the sellers didn't respond to me, so it's just a lesson, and I can use these cards as a reference. So I got this card in the mail. The first thing that threw me off, I was like, look how off-centered that sticker is. It's really bad. And then, of course, that wasn't the biggest thing because it looks really good. They did really good inking. It's really, really high quality, but it's super, super waxy and like plasticky feeling. So in a sleeve, looks amazing, but it's not a good counterfeit if you can hold it and immediately tell like this isn't a magic card. So another card I got in the mail was this Castle Lock Dwayne here. Now this one tripped me out the most because, you know, I looked at the back of it and held it up to an older card, and you won't be able to see most likely with my camera, but the green dot and the white dot and the blue dot or whatever on the back of the card, it looked like a little smudgy around the black. I was like, oh, that, see, I compared it to another card. It was pretty smudgy. Now this one I got in a draft, so I pulled it personally, and actually this one looks kind of smudgy too. So I started thinking, okay, well, how do they feel? Well, this one feels exactly like a magic card. It feels really good. And then I thought, well, maybe the foiling is different. And then I started looking, and actually the foiling is about the same. This is another card I pulled from a pack. I also have a card I pulled from a pack during a draft from the same set to kind of use as a reference. But then I looked at the cards side by side, and I would like to see what you guys think about this, because they look pretty good, but they still look different in a few areas. And besides that, the biggest thing I noticed, and see, this is where the discussion really starts. You won't be able to see on the camera, I'm sure. I should invest in a better camera. But down underneath where it says Deckmaster, there's like a purple ring around the big oval on both sides. On this side, on this card right here, the one I received in the mail, there's a very thin layer of, thin like a hair wrapped around of white, and there's not on here. I looked at the other Throne of Eldraine cards, and there's no thin of white. So where the discussion goes now is what Wizards needs to be doing, because I believe it's counterfeit still. I'm going to take it into my LGS to get it checked out by somebody who would know a little bit better than me, even though I spent, a long time doing a little bit of research on how to tell if a card's counterfeit. Wizards needs to step up, because one of the things I use as an indicator is the stickers are crooked. See? Nice and centered. But then I started looking at my other older cards that I know for a fact are not counterfeit, and you can see that the stickers are crooked on their own cards. Another better example is this one right here. This cheap rare. Just one of those cards I got that was just a bulk rare. It's not centered. It's the exact same size. It feels the same. And if this ends up being counterfeit, that's a big problem, because that means counterfeits are really soon from being indistinguishable from real cards. And as expensive as cards are, if they get indistinguishable from other cards, what's the point of buying cards? Particularly older cards. Now, they tried these foil stamps, and now they're getting really good at recreating it. Older cards that don't have the foil stamps, like a good example would be one of these. Let me grab it real fast out of the binder. One of these types of cards, they can probably, if they're most likely able to already just counterfeit this completely. I was using my other foil lands to kind of use as a reference too, and I'm telling you guys that the foiling is just, I'm not going to unsleeve it, but I was looking at the foiling, and I pulled this out of a pack myself. It's so good. It's so good. And if you look at the glare, it's not all waxy. So what do you guys think? I'm curious what you guys think. Just go ahead and leave a comment or message me on Facebook or on YouTube. I check it. What do you think they should do? I know a lot of people complain about how Magic cards don't look like Magic cards anymore, and I miss the old way. I miss the old looking cards, and these new cards, they just look like Pokemon cards or whatever. And I do really like the older cards. The problem is that as cards get older, they get more expensive. As more people want to play, they can't. And that's a huge problem that Magic needs to address, because this game shouldn't be a game that you have to pay to win. Um, I went to my local game store and I had a pretty cool deck I put together. It was during the Shards of Alara block. It was a Bant, like Angel Exalted deck, and it sucks. It's terrible, and it's mainly because of the lands. Trying to get 3 lands is basically impossible if you want to play with somebody at a card shop, unless you're running fetch lands and shock lands and a good $200 land base. And I'm afraid that Magic is going to lose a lot of this side of the game, because it's just too expensive and not worth it. I have some friends I've made at card shops that we trade around cards if I need them, not to take home, but just while we're there. If we're both in a Modern tournament and I bring my binder and they bring theirs, I'm like, hey man, I'd really like to get one more Bloodghast in my vampire deck. Do you have one? Oh, you do? All right. While we're both here, can I use it? That's been really helpful and really cool. But that's not everybody's got that. So the way I see it is, people now are going to need to go to like Walmart and buy pre-made decks and play with those, um, pre-made commander decks, pre-made brawl decks, and just play with those. But the whole idea of collecting cards and building decks, it's just getting to a point where it's too expensive, and I don't want it to be. As somebody who collects cards, I love pulling a foil waterlogged grove and having some trade value. But at the same time, if I needed a waterlogged grove for my deck, I don't want to spend that kind of money to play a game. For the price of you got to think about this. For the price of just a standard deck that's competitive, you could buy yourself a PlayStation 4. You could buy yourself a game, or what are they? You could buy yourself a Wii U. You could get yourself a Nintendo Switch. You can get yourself a skateboard, a bicycle. These are cardboard, and I think that people need to remember that. As collected as they are, they aren't what they think, or what people think they are. During Alpha, they had a small print run. During some other sets, they had a tiny print run, making the cards collectible. But most of these cards, there's millions of them, and it may not seem like it because people have them and they're not selling them, but they're not rare, really. I mean, Castle Locthwain, as good of a card as, how many do you think there are in the world? It is cardboard, and it's not one of those things like, well, I'm just going to hold on to it, and in 30 years, it's going to be worth a lot of money. No, it'll get to a point of where the market decides it'll be at, and it'll stay there. And like, think of cards like Bitter Blossom. They've been the same price for 10 years. They just are the same. Or Bloodghast. It's been the same price for not 10 years. It hasn't been out for 10 years, but since the time of Bitter Blossom or Bloodghast, they've been around the same price. So collecting isn't like an investment, and I think a lot of the people I run into the card shops see it as that, where it's like, well, I've got this card, but what do you think it's going to be worth in 3 years? It's like, well, it might go up, but chances are it's going to hit a point and then stay that way, and then it's just, no, it's a card. Anyways, like I said, I want to hear what you guys think. What should Wizards of the Coast do in order to cut counterfeiting? I would say just reprint more sets that contain them. It's a game after all. You'd still make your money. People would want the good cards. They'd buy the packs. For example, if they made a new set, called it like Vintage Masters, Modern Masters, or even Standard Masters, or what's the new one? Legacy? Not Legacy. It's a new format people are playing, which is like just the last few blocks. Anyways, if they made a set that was full of those cards, and people are like, oh, well, it's really hard for me to get the cards from Return to Ravnica because they don't sell them anymore. Just reprint them. Who gives a shit? Well, the collectors, their whole values will go down. No, they won't. There's already millions of those cards out there. And if they do go down, well, then maybe people will stop collecting Magic cards like it's something that it is. Because everybody who plays knows. I love cards, and I still continue to buy them all the time. I just bought 4 Sorens. It was like $100 on paper. I didn't like spending that much because I'm not trading them. I'm not trying to get them higher. I just want to play with them. But I think we should be trying to get people out of the mindset of getting all crazy collective with it, because in the end, people will spend stupid money on stupid things. Like, people buy skins on video games like League of Legends, or um, they buy like golden guns in their Modern Warfare games. It's just money for something they like. People will play Arena and they'll buy sleeves and pets and stuff that doesn't really matter. It's because they like it. If people like the cards, they're going to buy them. So if you reprint them, you're going to have people that like the reprints and they're going to want to buy them. And you're still going to make money. Um, I heard recently that Wizards of the Coast is making a mobile app. I'm actually really into the idea of having games becoming digital, as much as I love the cardboard. And that's probably a topic for another video. But like I said, I'm just rambling. I want to hear what you guys think. If you want to add to the discussion, I'm absolutely, curious to hear what you guys think. Thanks for watching, and yeah, thank you so much for spending the time. It's already, 11 minutes into the video, so if you're still here, thanks. All right, I'll see you next time.